The world is full of wonders.
Magic is waiting in small moments.
And monsters might be watching, just out of sight.
But if you're looking to find them,
adventure is waiting to happen.
You never know who you'll meet along the way.
We are the Storyteller Squad. Hello, adventurers. Welcome back to the Storyteller Squad. Thanks for joining us for more Monster of the Week. Before we begin, let's check in with our heroes.
In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
Damn it.
The Savenwylde Guard, who investigate crime, and the Dragon Attorneys, who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories. I'm Damien Edgecrest.
I love how quickly that broke Natalie.
Oh, wow.
I'm so glad someone did it. This is the Storyteller Squad.
I'm totally saving the video because the way Natalie just crumbled was really hysterical to me.
Storyteller Victims Unit.
No.
I have lost decorum in the first 5 seconds.
Executive producer, Dick Wolf.
Oh my god.
Oh, wow. All right.
That was really funny.
Well, good luck, Brittany.
Good luck, babe.
Every crime drama needs a sassy goth, right? Even the courtroom ones? I don't know. I don't watch this kind of TV that much. I'm Raven Eugenia.
Hey!
NCIS, you're doing it.
Woo!
You guys can go ahead and play Law and Order. I'm going to be over here playing Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Phone a Friend. I'm Amity Starnbrook.
Ooh.
I like it.
I fail to remember at what point in the Itsy Bitsy Spider he takes the bar exam. I'm Hugo Rashaad, and I'm in danger.
Oh my god!
Oh, man!
Damn! Y'all came to play tonight.
You know, Hugo, I hear for these sorts of things, you'll need a real ace attorney. Unfortunately, all you got is the gay one. I'm Agent Lonnie Whittaker.
Oh my god! Bless you, Alonzo fucking Whittaker.
Fucking being the operative word there.
Now, I am confident you will review without passion the evidence you are about to hear. Come to a decision and restore this man to his family. In the name of the court of Savenwylde, do your duty. Believe Hugo Rashaad. Let's have an adventure.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Kabe, attorney at law.
No animals, mockingbirds or otherwise, were harmed in the making of this podcast.
Oh, is that what that reference was? Jesus, fuck, dude, that's a throwback.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, Miss English major.
Last time, our heroes had a little downtime, probably the most cozy of which was a picnic put together by Amity, where they came together after the news that Rogue Team would be suspended for some time, but excluding Aidan Brightwood from that punishment. A move by director Olivia Easty to impress upon Aidan that even her actions sometimes must come with consequences. But at the picnic, Aidan got some reassurance that the team is not scared of her and tried to explain a little bit more where she was coming from and why she destroyed the lab back up in Seattle. But in the midst of this picnic, Mira handed Hugo a golden summons to the Royal Court of Savenwylde as a favor of hers was cashed in, forcing her to be the delivery person for such a binding contract. Everyone made preparations to travel into the Havens to back Hugo up, all but Aidan, who had to stay behind in order to keep Olivia Easty from being even more furious with your group. And in the night before you were all about to leave, she was called to respond to an emergency in Boston. More on that later, adventurers. Arriving in the Havens, your group made it to Savenwylde, the royal city, and were led by some of the royal guard to the courtroom, a large suspended dais with a massive tree serving as both judge's bench and throne for the Vernal King Nuada and the autumnal Queen Maeve. Court was brought into session with the arrival of the prosecution, one Jon Bjōrk Nuitharis, the dragon that our heroes have been friends with in the past, but called to serve his duty to the courts and prosecute the accused, one Hugo Rashaad. And a litany of charges were brought against our favorite whispered hero, the most pressing and perhaps most fey of them all, the theft of the heart of the Princess Anya of the Summer Court. And when asked if Hugo would be defending himself, a hush rang out over the crowd as the doors swung open and one Dr. Aranya Kabe made his dramatic entrance and proclaimed that he would serve as the lawyer for the defense. And that is where we pick up now, as murmurs begin to percolate amongst the gathered folk nobles, and before much more time can pass after Kabe's initial statement, he raises a hand and places the other on his briefcase and says,
If the court please, I would request a brief recess to confer with my client, given the last-minute nature of my being appointed to this position.
And the queen turns to the king, who gives a sort of half-interested raise of an eyebrow, and she turns back to Kabe and says, "We will make an allowance for it. Take very little time, Doctor." And we see Jay give a sort of like respectful, if challenging, nod to Kabe, who returns it, and then turns to the rest of you. And when he opens his briefcase, a small dome of shimmering light surrounds your group as he casts a silencing spell around you so that you can quickly discuss amongst yourselves a plan.
Ooh.
Above the table question. How much do we know about Hugo's work with Kabe at this point? I forget how much we've been told.
I don't think he ever came up during the discussions of the vigilante work.
He did not.
You do know he's still in contact with Kabe, though.
I know he's still in contact, but I don't know that they have, like, a professional relationship.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, with that in mind, Whittaker looks a little hostile. Hugo, you can't possibly be okay with this. Did you call him? What is this?
I have no idea. Kabe, since when do you have a law degree?
The real priorities.
That's a good question.
He says,
I'm as old as the first stories. I was there when the laws were written and codified.
Okay, yeah, that tracks.
You being in Kabe's debt has gotten us in trouble before.
Yeah, I'm not as much in his... I guess I'm kind of still in his debt a little bit. We have an arrangement.
Anything to add, Doctor?
Mr. Rashaad and I have reached a professional agreement regarding his contributions to the magical community and the benefit of him having his whole self accessible in order to perform such actions adequately.
Yeah, you'd make a great lawyer. What the fuck?
Do you remember that time that I called you because I needed help with some stuff?
Yes.
It's thanks to Kabe that I was alive to make that call in the first place.
Frankly, it will likely also be thanks to me that you are able to avoid being exiled or thrown into the Savenwylde dungeons.
Are those the stakes?
Hugo stands charged with grand larceny. That is the most pressing and perhaps most accurate of the levied charges against him. The rest are to prop up this case and to make it seem more serious. If they are able to establish viable arguments for the others, it will make the final and most legitimate charge easier to prove.
The charge of stealing the princess's heart.
These are the folk courts. Emotions are the law here.
Oh, I'm dead then. Okay.
It sounds like the sides are either prove that Anya doesn't love him, which is seemingly not true, or prove that she does, which then is what they're charging him of. How are you going to navigate this?
If we can prove that her heart was given, not stolen, we will be able to recuse him of the charges and get the entire case thrown out.
Well, why don't we just ask her?
The prosecution will certainly be calling her to the stand.
Gosh, this is going to be like a proper, actual thing, isn't it?
You must understand that Fey Court is a production, theatrics, a performance. And he sort of spreads his long fingers, and there's like a sort of web-like shimmer between them. And there's a bunch of little dancing figures that leap and skip through the, design of it. And then he claps his hands together again. He says, "There is, however, one tact we might try, and it is a gamble, and will require divided attentions.
At this point, I'm good with anything.
You will need to stay here as the accused, and anyone else with experience with the law might also be a benefit to have on hand to formulate our case. The rest of you," he glances at your companions, Hugo, "Mr. Rashaad is still without portions of his memory. By no fault of mine," he sort of puts a hand up towards you, Whittaker.
All right.
"Due to the nature of his agreement with the Princess Bridget, Hugo's memory of his first courtship with the Lady Anya is lost to him. However, if it could be recovered, there may be some bit of evidence there we can use to dismantle their arguments."
How do we do that?
I think I know some people who can help.
You don't think Bridget still has them? The memories, that is.
We could call her to the stand, but I do not believe that to be the nature of their deal.
Amity, what's your idea? You've spent more time here than anyone else.
Well, I sent a message to Nana Margie, and apparently she's here. So's Merlin, and so's Morgan. If there's anyone who knows anything around that kind of magic, it might be them.
It's worth a shot.
Would love to have some big names on our side. No offense, Dr. Kabe.
I could list the rest of my titles, if you would like.
I don't think we have time for that.
We do not have all day.
Another time, perhaps.
Maestro, chef,
Sommelier.
master craftsman.
Somehow he's been knighted.
Oh, that would really get my fucking...
Sir Dr. Kabe.
I hate this man.
Well, you mentioned divided attention, and that's me. I'm going to be honest, the courtroom is not really my scene, especially the folk court. So I can help out with not being here if that's totally happy to help. But this is not my ballpark.
As a fellow larcenist, we should probably move you out of the room.
Honestly, the least amount of attention you can draw to yourself, the better, Mr. Edgecrest. I don't believe the courts would be understanding if certain truths were to be revealed regarding your lineage.
I suspected as much, and he'll adjust his sunglasses.
Raven, where you want to be?
I don't know how much help I would be here. I kind of feel like I should go with them.
If Morrigan's out there, then you two can catch up.
Yeah. And we can just come back as soon as we find the evidence, or should we burst through the door dramatically and yell objection?
Whittaker looks at Kabe.
He turns to Amity and says,
You are familiar with the basic sending spell.
Yeah,
Get in touch the moment you have anything.
you got it.
Best that we coordinate our surprise against the prosecution, Miss Eugenia.
She gives him a little salute. Should we get going?
he glances at his wrist where there is like a little like golden hourglass that's sort of just like tick, 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 ticking away as little sand things drop. And he says, Yes, I would be on your way. We see Wendy like pawing at the briefcase, and Kabe says, Yes, a quick exit, my little friend. And we'll flip the latches on it, open the briefcase, and there's just like a dark void within. And Wendy will sort of look back to you, Raven, and then dive down into it. You watch Wendy scamper away down this dark tunnel, and Kabe addresses your group, Amity, Raven, Damien.
You have all accomplished the impossible before. I have no reason to think you could not do it a second time. Be swift, or we cannot change the course of Hugo Rashaad's story.
Okay, here we go, I guess. And then Raven will dive in after Wendy.
If you go and jump towards the briefcase, you suddenly like shrink a little bit and sort of get sucked down into it.
Oh, nice.
And when you're inside, like once you get past the barrier of like the briefcase's edge, you see Wendy running down a massive underground warren tunnel.
Oh, She's running after him.
As Raven heads into the briefcase, Amity's going to turn and offer a hand to Damien to help him step into the briefcase. She's going to go last.
Thank you. Damon will cannonball in.
Mm-hmm.
And then Amity just very politely steps up and steps into the briefcase. Just very simple.
Yeah, we're almost Mary Poppins. You like just sort of descend.
Yeah, a little. Just a little.
You all can follow Windy through this magical tunnel. There's like a little hill just like outside the like city limits of Savenwylde, and like a little stump, and like a door appears in it and swings open, and Windy hops out into the field, and you all can follow them out.
Where to next?
Are we going to have to walk the rest of the way?
Just standing there looking at the city. We're now completely outside.
Mm-hmm.
Hold that thought. Amity is going to send off a quick sending to Nana Margie and just say, hey, we're here. Where are you at?
You get back at first a rattling of dishes and seemingly the sound of someone crying, just like wailing, like bawling their eyes out. And Nana Margie says, yeah, we're at the usual place, kid. Kind of in the middle of something. Let me know when you get here.
Oh, boy. Okay. Both of you, grab onto me, please. Whisper starts swirling around.
Oh, I love the idea of them doing it together, actually. Windy and Whisper start chasing each other in a circle around the three of you.
Adorable. I support that, yes.
Yeah.
Windy and Whisper start running around in a crazy little circle around the three of them. Amity raises her staff up, as high as she can, and then slams it down. And this torrent of wind and blue fire rapidly engulfs them in a swirl. And then they appear outside. It's a cottage, right?
Well, you vanish first. We will cut to where you reappear in a moment.
Oh, we vanish.
For the drama.
Back in the courtroom, Kabe closes the briefcase, and when he does and the latches shut, the shimmering, half-translucent orb of a barrier retreats, and Hugo, you, Whittaker, and Kabe are left there on the defense's side of the court.
They'll be fine, right?
They now likely trek into the wild havens. It is impossible to say what they might encounter.
They'll be fine.
We must put our faith in them and keep our focus here.
Okay, yeah.
The queen has been sort of watching this orb that appeared very intently, and as you all turn your attention back to her, she says, I hope your recess was productive, Dr. Kabe. But without any further delay, we will begin these proceedings. Court is in session. Prosecution, call your first witness. And we see Jay, in his dragon form, floating in graceful serpentine motion, angles himself to address the gathered court and says, The prosecution calls Princess Bridget of the Winter Court. And a chill blows through the courtroom.
Oh, literal. Okay.
And a little section of the tree, again, towards the bottom where there are no leaves and a frost over the branches, a swirling flurry of snowflakes gathers, and manifesting is Anya's sister Bridget. Neat blue suit jacket and little like cut off at the knee breeches with the like white stockings and little ice heels, and her like spiked, very white, frosty hair. She sort of appears lounging on the branches. She says, Good day, everyone. And Jay turns and says, Would you please approach the stand, princess? And she apparates into more frost and breeze and then remanifests on this podium, which sort of arises from the ground and grows a little pulpit for witnesses to stand in. The rest of the folk in the court all sort of take seats, either growing little mushroom stools or taking small miniature chairs, blowing on them, and they suddenly pop into large full-size chairs that they sit down on. Some of them, their clothes, as they like shake their skirt, transform in back to create like a supported hammock or like a literal starched fabric folding seat to sit in. It's much more comfortable than a mundane court, but there's still an air of like proceeding about this as things begin. Jay flies over to the stand, again, his dragon form floating in twisting movements. He says to Bridget, Were you aware of the Princess Anya's intent to marry Hugo Rashaad?
Well, yeah. There was a while she couldn't stop talking about it. Of course, that was several years ago now.
Indeed. Were you aware of the promise she made to the Queen on the eve of her engagement? Bridget sort of makes a face at that and says,
Yeah, she came to me first. Bawling her eyes out she was. And also, clearly upset at what Mum had sort of led her into saying and making that promise in the first place. So, yeah, I knew about that. Probably the first person she told.
Jay glances at Hugo, and there's a, regret in his eyes, but he then looks back to Bridget and says, did you forge a deal with Hugo Rashaad with the direct intention of subverting the outcome of a royal promise?
Yeah, I suppose. Yes.
And are you not directly responsible for his induction into the ranks of the witch hunters?
Well, I mean, I needed him to die in order to... It just seemed a very dangerous thing to put him in the line of. Honestly thought they might just kill him flat out and then it would be done real quick. But he's a bright little cookie, right? So, yeah, he got them to invite him in. Must mean he's quite charming, eh?
And Jay continues, were you fully aware of his continued involvement with the witch hunters in the years following? And did you still allow the princess to return to Hugo in the human realm, knowing that he'd become a dangerous ally of these witch hunters?
Well, that was part of our deal, so I had to. Yes.
Did you not consider that your actions might directly endanger the princess, after he not only became a witch hunter, but a leader of one of their sects?
It did not cross my mind. He seemed pretty stand-up when we interacted.
And how often did you interact with Mr. Rashaad?
Once.
Girl.
Very good, Your Highness. Thank you. Your witness, defense.
It is now up to y'all and Kabe to cross-examine Bridget.
Oh boy. Oh, fun.
Mm-hmm.
Whittaker has opened his suitcase and got out his nicer suit for the occasion and is adjusting a tie. Just for clarification, if Jay is prosecuting, is it the king and queen who are presiding over the trial?
Yes.
Gotcha.
It is medieval in that sense.
Yes. If Kabe doesn't say anything immediately...
I think you see Kabe seated, and he has his eyes closed, but you can see under the lids his eyes darting about, as though he is searching for something. So you think he is maybe working to build something, but he kind of it just indicates with two fingers of you two do something while I prepare.
Whittaker, what do we do?
Whittaker will stand up. Your Majesties, if I may, is it Bridget of the Winter Court who is on trial today?
Ooh. The queen gives you an appraising look, and she says,
The Princess Bridget is not here to be punished for her actions. The court requires a full picture of the situation in order to assess the charges levied. Undermining the will of the Royal Court of Savenwylde is a serious offense, Mr. Whittaker.
And you gather that that is the charge in which they are bringing Bridget forward to address.
Understood. Please forgive me if my experience in the courts is lacking, but from what I've heard from this witness testimony, it does seem that Bridget of the Winter Court has offered substantial evidence for her part in undermining the intent of the court, and all of the testimony regarding my defendant is a little lacking. In fact, I do believe she said he was stand-up and direct, and a smart cookie. I suppose I want to tie this in a way that sounds like hey, she didn't say anything actually all that crazy.
You can have Whittaker say that.
It's theatric.
I'm so not in the court headspace, and I need to get there, and I'm...
Yeah, it's okay. We're warming ourselves up. This is the first witness. It's an easy softball.
Don't say that!
Any schmuck could do well in this scenario.
Oh, God!
At least it's someone we know and kind of already know her story. I feel like it'll be not super difficult to ask her, not leading questions because that's bad in court, but like questions we know what the answer will be for her to say nice things about Hugo.
I will also say, yes, leading questions are not good, but also I talked to my friend who is studying to become a lawyer, and literally none of the stuff we're doing here would hold up in an actual court of law.
No, not even a little bit.
God, no. The charges themselves are nothing.
The fact that it's governed by emotion specifically, automatically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just need to get her to say he's a nice person and didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, we're going to do our best parody of court proceedings here. Because real court is not dramatic or fun, so...
Yeah. All right.
Which, that's fake court. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All of the witnesses' testimony regarding the character of the defendant has seemed quite positive, in my opinion, and I hope in the opinion of the court.
Jay will flick one of his dragon ears.
Objection. Is the defense going to cross-examine the witness or question the judges of this trial?
Oh, my good buddy Jay, I love this guy.
Roll charm, Whittaker.
This is assassination.
I'll give you a +1 because you know about fake courts from Jay specifically.
Ooh, straight 2d6. It's a 7.
Okay. If you glance at Jay with any amount of betrayal or like, come on, man, we're in over our heads over here, Jay just gives you this very direct look. And it's hard to read facial expression on a dragon, but there's something to his body language that seems to indicate that he is actually trying to help you all out. Just, there's only so many tools he can use. And with a subtle glance to the throne and a small shake of his dragon head before breaking eye contact, you gather his objection in this moment was more intended as a warning, and that it might behoove you to stick to questioning the witnesses as much as you might be tempted to question the framework of the case itself.
Gotcha. My question is only in regards to the content of the witness's testimony towards the actions and character and therefore intent of my client. Bridget of the Winter Court, I understand you met with Hugo once, as you said?
Yeah. Before everything went topsy-turvy a couple of years ago.
When were you made aware of Anya's intent to marry Hugo Rashaad? Was it before or after meeting Hugo?
It was definitely before. I met him when I traveled to the human realm to let him know that she would not be making their appointment. And in fact, that had been told to me that they intended to get married, I believe, several human months prior to her preparing to leave Savenwylde officially.
So is it correct for me to conclude then that she had a sustained intent to marry Hugo that was consistent over the course of several human months?
Yeah, Anya's not really one to make decisions rashly. Mom and I are definitely the more impulsive side of the family. There is a sharp inhale from the queen, and she glares daggers down at Bridget, who sort of laughs nervously and tugs at her collar as a single bead of sweat forms and then freezes at her temple. Anybody else feeling a bit warm? Just me?
Princess Bridget, given the Princess Anya's intention, which as you've attested to was prolonged and sustained for some time, and given her status as Princess of the Summer Court, wouldn't that intention therefore be considered the will of the Court of Savenwylde? And perhaps it was this will which was first to be subverted?
Bridget smiles, and a bright twinkle returns to her eye as she sees what you've set up. Yeah, I suppose it would be. That's interesting, ain't it?
Whittaker nods, and that was sort of all I had. I don't know if I have anything else to ask her. Has anybody got anything? Feel free to toss it to me.
Whittaker, do we know what the grounds of the initial objection to Anya getting married was?
Hugo, you have Kabe and Whittaker as your lawyers, but you can speak on your behalf in this trial too. I'm not going to make you sit silently for the entire arc.
It would be hilarious, though.
No, it would be terrible. It would be bad spotlight sharing. In fact, I'll say the king, who was previously staring off into the middle distance, as though watching something, turns his attention to you, Hugo. When you whisper your question to Whittaker, he says,
You may be involved in your defense, Mr. Rashaad.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Highness, can you inform the court under what circumstances Princess Anya was not allowed to make her appointment?
Ooh. Bridget says the promise that Anya made to the Queen forbade her from traveling to the human realm until your mortal life had ended. This was why she would not be able to meet with you and perform the intended ceremony.
Do you believe that the specific person that Anya was supposed to be meeting with had an impact on the creation of that arrangement?
Oh, for sure. The Queen definitely didn't want Anya marrying some mortal. No offense.
None taken. So just some mortal.
Yeah, as far as I know. Were you secretly like a king? She kind of leans up onto the like pulpit, like staring at you, like, I never would have guessed. You do have a sort of princely demeanor about you.
No, I'm just wondering why it is that she hates me so much. Jeez, she doesn't even know me.
The Queen breaks her silence and says directly to you, Hugo, the defendant should note, this court still does not know him.
In his head, he goes, well, that sounds like a skill problem on the part of the court. But what he actually ends up saying is, to what extent is the interactions of deals and arrangements a part of folk culture?
I mean, it's pretty integral, I'd say. We make them all the time. Have to. You can't trust a folk's word, not unless they give it to you.
Would you say that it is commonplace for different promises and arrangements and such to interact in such a manner that is less beneficial to the initial promises?
If you mean do things ever contradict each other? All the time. It gets real messy. That's why we have court. And they kind of gesture at everyone here. And that gets a laugh from the crowd.
In those situations where there is conflict and contradiction, ultimately what determines which promises have priority?
She says, usually the people presiding over court. And her eyes shoot up again to the king and queen sitting in judgment on the proceedings.
One more question, Your Highness. How often does it occur that the ones presiding over the court are involved in the same dealings which are being discussed by the court?
Conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
Which doesn't really matter because their interest is the highest in the land, but either way.
I know.
Yeah. No, fair.
I love pointing out hypocrisy in the monarchy whenever possible.
Mm-hmm. Bridget says, more often than you might suspect. And then you hear, objection. The king and queen are not on trial today either, Mr. Rashaad. As Jay flips the question Whittaker was asking first on you.
It's not my intention to place their majesties under trial. I'm simply seeking a better understanding of the system within which I am being tried myself.
In this moment, Kabe's eyes shoot open, and he says, precisely why you need a good lawyer, Mr. Rashaad. And he will stand. Kabe approaches Bridget, and he says, Your Highness, you are aware of my expertise. And Bridget says, well, sure, I know you, Spider. Then, if I were to ask you for a memory for the purposes of evidence, would you consent to sharing it with the court? And Bridget squints at Kabe for a moment, looks to Hugo, then back to Kabe, and she grins cheekishly and she says, yes. She extends a hand, and Kabe will shake her hand, and dark fey runes extend from within the sleeve of his suit, and her frosty light blue runes extend from within the cuff of hers. They bind over their hands, and Kabe with his other hand reaches forward and pulls a shining gossamer like mote from her forehead and holds it aloft in two, between like thumb and pointer finger. And he says, if the court would allow this memory as evidence, I present it to you now. And tosses it into the air, and this mote expands and becomes a sort of viewable orb. From all angles, though, it maintains the same image, like parallax style. And we see Bridget sitting in her room with Anya in the moments following the promise she made to Queen Maeve. And you hear Anya's voice sort of echo from the memory. Please, Bridget, There must be something we can do. I love him so much, and now he'll die before I can see him again. Haven's light. Help me, Bridget, please. And Bridget, stroking her sister's hair and holding her hand, says softly, There, Summer Spark. Chin up. It'll be all right. Mom tricked you. We'll just trick her back. And we see this memory slow down and begin to fade within the foggy orb as Anya continues to weep in Bridget's arms. Dr. Kabe says,
Your Highness, if we are to interpret this evidence correctly, would you agree that the will of the royal court was at the very least divided over the matter of the Princess Anya's courtship and intent to marry Hugo Rashaad?
Bridget, glancing at the memory, sort of nods. You see the corners of her eyes getting a little misty, and she says, That sums it up, I think. And Kabe looks to Jay, who gives a very, respectful nod and says, Memories then will be accepted as evidence per the FRE.
Agreed.
And another contract is forged between Jay and Kabe, agreeing that memory visions will be an accepted form of evidence. The memory returns to that small mote and floats down into Kabe's hand. He catches it gently and will hand it back over to Bridget, who takes it, presses it against her chest, and it vanishes.
After watching Kabe pull that trick, I think something clicks for Whittaker. I think he's going to stand back up. Bridget, to your knowledge, did Hugo Rashaad ever display any intent to infiltrate the court in any way other than marrying Anya?
From what she told me, he didn't really have any interest in the court at all beyond her, which is why she was leaving to go live with him in the mortal world.
All of that was done in the name of having an uninterrupted relationship. Would you say that is correct?
Yes.
Would you say that he was always upfront about that intention in the brief moment that you knew him and from what Anya told you of him?
Yes.
So would you say that his aims were in fact very well known and very well established?
I'd say they were pretty clear, if you'd taken any time at all to ask him about it.
Can you think of a reason Hugo and the Princess Anya's aims might not have been clear to certain individuals? And Whittaker can't help but glance towards the king and queen when he says this.
Bridget very pointedly avoids following that glance, and instead, she just allows a sad smile to cross her face. And she says, Sometimes the crown's indifference causes them some trouble, especially when it regards their daughters. And she flicks the moisture at the corners of her eye away, smoothly readopting her cavalier demeanor, and they freeze into snowflakes in the air before quickly melting away. The queen exhales with no small amount of frustration, wringing the fabric of her skirts in tight fists. Meanwhile, the king's attention seems to be fixed on a butterfly that has decided to dance and flit about his crown.
No thoughts, head empty.
No, every thought, head very full.
I know, but
Kabe gives you a nod, Whittaker, and then turns to Jay and says,
No further questions. Call your next witness.
And we will cut away. Amity, you, Raven, and Damien appear in a swirl of wind and fire in a forest that opens into a clearing where we see a small cottage down below.
You were up on the hill, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Amity just immediately goes, Follow me! And just starts running down the hill. Merlin! Nana Margie! Morgan!
We're running.
You all book it down this hill towards the cottage. And as you get closer, you can start to hear a lot of commotion. The clattering of plates, voices, raised in order to be conversing over the sound of this distraught weeping that continues in the background. When you round the house, you see laid out before you is a long dining table with white tablecloth and lots of little dishes and a teapot and biscuits and cookies and toast with jam and all these things laid out for a little tea. and you see seated at the table, at the far end, you see Merlin perched atop a round wooden bar stool, full like knees up to chin goblin style, clutching a teacup and a saucer in their hands. Lounging in one of those fully reclinable glamping chairs is Nana Margie, wearing a Red Sox baseball cap, a worn-looking jean jacket over an old but cozy-looking gray hoodie, and a very flowy, colorful set of skirts. She's got her Birkenstock sandal-clad feet resting on the table and is sipping languorously on a culotta the color of antifreeze. Sitting very stately, her long gloved fingers, I think, wrapped around a like crystal goblet of some sort, and with the feathered headdress that falls and cascades down her back, forming her mantle and cape, is the Morrigan, her like curly ringlet hair spilling forward over her dark black dress. The other people here at this gathering, one is a four-legged, winged, and also feather-covered creature, with little like owl tufts at the top of their head and a long hooked beak and a swishing lion's tail extending from rear lion haunches. And then across from them, on the other side of the table, the weeping individual is it's like a baby calf face extending from the body of a sea turtle with like flippers oddly grabbing at a teacup, as well as tears just stream down their face, and they sort of continue to wail on, moaning as they sit in their seat.
Amity comes to a slow as they approach the table, and she doesn't recognize the two new figures at the table, right?
No, you haven't met them before. But Merlin catches your eye right away.
Yeah. Amity locks eyes with them and just kind of mouths what's going on?
Hey, kid. Welcome to tea. Have a seat.
Are they all right? Just points at the weeping turtle-like creature. What the fuck do you even call that? Hey, Brittany, cryptid sighting? What the fuck are these guys?
Yes!
What are these?
Can I?
Yes, you can! You absolutely can!
I'm so concerned by this creature.
I am too.
Hey, Natalie, what sort of creature is it?
I'm just going to answer it by role-playing some more. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as it answers it somehow. I don't care how.
The creature raven, who you can recognize on sight because it's very apparent what they are, this griffin at the table, who's also got a little teacup, and they turn and see your group approach, and he says,
More guests. Splendid. Brilliant. What? Don't mind him. He'll be fine. It's just his fancy. Who can say how many sad thoughts creep their way through his mind as he revels in melancholy?
Oh, okay.
Hi. Who are you?
Right to introductions. How very formal of you, Miss Witch. I am a griffin. A magnificent beast, if you don't mind my saying so.
Do I just call you Griffin, or do you go by another name?
Merlin speaks up and says, we usually just call him Griff. It would take too long to list all his titles. The griffin gives a very formal bow. Their wings sort of spread and then fold again behind their back.
And this fellow here is Mr. Mock Turtle.
They gesture at the crying creature across from them.
Amity just does a little polite bow towards each of them. Mr. Griff, Mr. Mock Turtle, lovely to meet you. Are you sure he's okay?
I'll be fine.
If you say so. These are my friends, Raven and Damien. Raven, that's Nana Margie. You might remember her from the DMV.
Mm-hmm.
That's Merlin. And then over there is the Morrigan.
Hey.
Hey.
Nana Margie gives just a wrinkly grandma smile. And Morrigan, their face turns very slowly to face you. And they say, good to see you.
Good to see you. I think Raven's just a tiny bit intimidated now.
The griffin turns to greet you, Raven, and he says excitedly,
Young lady, it is a pleasure to meet you. Tell me, have you any idea why you are like a writing desk?
What?
Never mind. Now's not the time to discuss such deep and distressing mysteries of the cosmos.
and they wag their eagle-taloned front paw at the mock turtle excitedly.
Mockers, Tell these lovely people about yourself. They're very concerned for you. It would be rude not to calm their worries, what?
The mock turtle sets their teacup down, picks up a napkin,
Okay, I'll try.
like blows their little cow nose snoot into the napkin with their turtle flippers, and then turns to face you all and they say,
Okay.
once.
I was a real turtle.
Amity's just gonna sit down at the table and pull up a seat,
Mm-hmm.
probably by Merlin or Morgan.
Raven's gonna take a seat next to Nana Margie, but like near Merlin and Morgan, maybe like across from Morgan.
In between Nana Margie and Griffin.
Sure.
You gonna sit down, Damien?
I'd love to sit down, but we're kind of in a hurry. We're in the middle of the court case, and as Damien's talking, he's got a plate and he's just loading it with cookies and crumpets and baked goods.
Nice.
We're in quite a hurry. Our friend is in the Fae courts, and we're trying to figure out if there's some magic way to get his lost memories back. We feel like that would help our side. These are really good. Thank you.
Yeah, as Damien was saying, our friend Hugo is in court right now trying to defend his relationship with the princess. It's kind of a long story, but the important bit is that he lost some really important memories because of a folk deal, and it might help us get him out of trouble if we could get those back. So, do any of you have any ideas about how to go about doing that?
Merlin taps a finger on their lips and they say, that is a tricky situation.
There was like a whole bunch of charges, and honestly, they seem kind of bogus to me, but, Fae logic.
The mock turtle interjects. They say,
Logic. No. It'll get you nowhere but upset.
I'm so concerned for this turtle. Oh my God. Mock turtle, excuse me. We have to differentiate.
Merlin says to you, Amity, memories, when they're gone, tend to stay gone. If there's a way to get them back, it's magic we haven't explored yet. And they kind of look to Margie and Morgan, who gives a solemn nod. And then you hear the cottage door open, and coming out to join the party is another familiar face to you, Amity. This small figure, you've always guessed they might be gnomish, is wearing a worn old wizard hat, which, if you only glanced quickly, you could easily mistake for a moss-covered tree stump, given all the little lichens and grass clusters that seem to be growing out of it. They are wearing a dark brown cloak with a high-buttoned collar that obscures most of their face, besides a pair of large, very fey eyes. The cape portion of their cloak is similarly adorned with mosses, pine needles, and other forest floor debris. And there is a small wooden staff slung over their back with a simple leather cord. Gilly Doo, the first of your teachers, Amity, is here, and they are carrying over a large fruit-topped cake. They realize you and your friends have joined since they went inside, and they say excitedly, Amity! Oh my goodness, you're here!
Hi, Gilly. It's good to see you.
They will set the cake down and excitedly run over to give you a hug. Around your knees, because they're very short.
Oh my God.
Merlin will ask, Gilly, any expertise with lost memories? Their big eyes shoot between Merlin and Amity, and they say, well, it wouldn't be the first time you came to us with an impossible question.
Amity just shrugs and goes, guilty.
The mock turtle dabs at their eyes and says, I wouldn't go admitting that if you're in the middle of trial proceedings.
He's not wrong.
I'm not on the list of the accused. I think I'm okay, but I'll keep that in mind.
The griffin says as he lights and begins to puff on a little pipe he's somehow acquired.
Best to be careful what you say in the havens, young lady. Even the trees can be listening. And they're terrible gossips as well. Why, the things I've heard evergreens whisper would make anyone bristle.
Evergreens have needles, Griff. Needles.
Indeed.
These two are ridiculous. Well, if none of you know anything directly about restoring lost memories, any idea on where to start looking?
Whatever it is, kid, it's gonna be a real big spell. So you're gonna need a lot of ingredients. I'll get my cookbook.
And Nana Margie gets up and goes rummaging around in a big like rucksack that she's brought with her. And you see her like reaching around. Then she like reaches her arm in up to the shoulder, even though it's sitting on the ground. Then she like keeps digging and she like puts her whole head inside the bag. And you hear her say, "Blueberry, give me the cookbook." Some fluttering of wings, a few pans falling over. You hear the echo of like kitchen utensils dropping and spilling. Eventually, Nana Margie emerges with a big tome, which she sets down on the table, and there's a rattle of glasses. She opens the book up and starts paging through, and she says, "Oh yeah, you're gonna need a lot of stuff. Let's just go through the list." And she starts listing off important ingredients. I don't want to get too specific because of what I have intended for you guys, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she says, "Turtle tears, griffin feather. Oh, hey, those will be easy." The griffin's sort of like, "I beg your pardon, madam."
If you wouldn't mind lending us a feather or two, we'd greatly appreciate it, but we won't force you.
The mock turtle, again, dabbing with their handkerchief, says to the griffin, "Oh, you might as well. We have to be off soon anyway to go see my cousin."
Who's your cousin?
Thank you.
We all leaned forward.
Come on, role play with me. Play in the space. So the griffin says,
Perhaps you've heard of him. He's a renowned traveling performer with Dr. Leland Loveland's menagerie.
Oh my fucking god.
Yes, my dear cousin Thwonky travels for work, so I haven't gotten to see him for many months, and I like to check in on him. It's not an easy life constantly bringing joy to the masses, but Thwonky, he loves his craft so much. It's inspiring.
That makes so much sense.
Amity just exchanges a look with Raven. We met him, right? At that state fair?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, have you heard of Thwonky the Squonk?
Yeah, we met him. Him and Dr. Loveland.
the mock turtle then just goes, "Oh, that's terrible. He hates being perceived."
Same guy.
Me fucking too.
Raven just nods solemnly. Understood.
Amity places a teacup under the mock turtle's face to catch some of his tears.
Smart.
Amazing. Yeah, the griffin will sort of get up, shake out their wings. A couple feathers fall anyway.
Well, old boy, I'd say now is as good a time as any to get where we're going. I disagree. I think to get where we are going now is as good a time as any. I don't know if I'd put it quite like that, but you may be onto something. Well, this is perfect. Now we have something to argue about on the road.
The griffin gives the rest of you another flourish-filled bow and says,
Thank you all for a wonderful afternoon of hospitality and conversation. I wish you the best of luck with your unprecedented endeavors.
Merlin raises a teacup to the two creatures as Mock Turtle climbs on the back of the griffin. Always a pleasure to have you both. Mock, my man, great stories as always. And the Mock Turtle calls back to you as Griffin takes off with them into the air.
Whatever you've heard about me is probably untrue.
And they're gone.
Once the cookbook came out, Damien has been eating snacks with one hand and furiously taking notes.
Mm-hmm. She will see you like starting to take notes, and she says, "Oh, do you dabble in the culinary arcane?"
Well, yeah, I mean, after I had these cookies, your cookbook was the most important thing around here. I was hoping we were going to get to that page. Yeah, I do a little cooking magic, so this is very interesting to me.
Nice. Here, Papa Squat. She snaps her fingers and a large toadstool just sprouts from the ground next to her where you can sit and sort of look over her shoulder as she's like writing things down.
Yeah, Damien will sit down and compile that list of ingredients.
Merlin looks to you, Amity, and they say, "I'll go get my books." Their eyes shoot up for a second. You hear some shifting of planks and beams and shingles, and they say, "Room's where you left it. Make yourself at home till you figure something out, I guess."
Oh, Amity just gives like a little soft smile and just goes, "Thanks, Merlin."
"We got this." And they step down off the stool, one leg at a time, like an awkward stork, and then stroll over to the cottage to start pulling out their magical tomes and texts.
She'll get up from the table and just be like, I'll be right back. And just follows Merlin into the house.
I think Gilly will just like approach you, Raven, and offer like a plate with a slice of the cake on it.
Oh,
We haven't been introduced, but I'm Gilly Doo. It's nice to meet you.
it's nice to meet you. I'm Amity's friend Raven. And she'll take the cake.
And then Gilly cuts another slice of the cake and hands a plate over to Windy,
Oh,
who takes it with a polite nod. And Gilly says,
It's good to see you.
everybody knows Windy.
yeah, they're the wind spirit.
I love it.
And they leave and head off to go give some cake to everyone else.
Nana Margie's still here, right? She didn't go inside.
Nana Margie's just like writing down real powerful spell components that you guys might seek out.
Okay. I wanted to ask her more about her book, but
You can. I mean, she's right there.
well, I don't want to interrupt her if she's already helping. And I think Raven's also just a little afraid to talk to the Morrigan.
And as you have that thought, Raven, appearing in a rustling of dark feathers, the Morrigan is there beside you.
Yes.
Oh my God.
She says, How have your dreams been of late?
Huh. I think that like genuinely snaps Raven out of feeling intimidated. Like it's such a personal question. It reminds her that they do know each other, and she's immediately more comfortable. She smiles and says, Good. Much better. I think what we did worked. I haven't had any uninvited guests since then. It's been nice.
I cannot say the same for the outside world.
What do you mean?
There is something new. It is causing disturbances.
Raven's gonna scoot a little closer and lean in kind of conspiratorially with the Morrigan, just full attention on what she has to share. Tell me all about it. What's going on?
Hard to say, but I know whatever it is has drawn the attention of your partner's siblings.
Would that disturbance you're talking about happen to be like a cute little dragon spirit by chance?
Morrigan sips at her tea for a long while, sets the cup down, and you see there are like the leaves at the bottom. And what is left there is sort of a impression of the strange silver and gold spirit that you encountered in Seattle. She just looks at you, her deep ebony eyes, and she says,
I only can speak for the whispers I hear, but it is gathering much attention.
Yeah, we saw that happen. Do you have any idea who they are or where they came from?
They are new. No one I know knows their name.
That's a pretty big deal with spirits, right? They're not usually new. I mean, as far as I know, every spirit kind of comes from somewhere, right? Even if the manifestation of them is new, they're still known. Like Windy, they appeared to me, but they've existed before then.
Windy will leap up into your lap, and the Morrigan glances at them, gives them a little nod, and then looks back to you, Raven, and says,
Indeed. Until most recently, that was certainly the case.
All right. So they're more special than we thought. We got to figure out where they came from and what their name is.
I think it would be good for you to pursue such things. Perhaps once you return home. Notably, this one,
she taps the rim of her teacup with the impression at the bottom,
has not made it here. Their home might exist elsewhere.
Has that ever happened before?
What do you think?
Well, I definitely want to help them. Thanks for telling me about this.
You are spirit-bound, Raven Eugenia. I tell you what it is your right to know. But you are welcome all the same.
Merlin kicks open the door to the house and emerges carrying a big stack of books, which they set down on the table. And when they do, it creates such a loud like bang and bump that most of the dishes fly up into the air, but nothing returns onto the table. They just sort of bounce up and are gone.
Guess tea time's over.
And Merlin says, I've never been a fan of rules, so let's learn how to break some.
Hell yeah. Research time.
We return to the folk courts. Bridget steps down from the podium and then takes a seat on the tree. Now that they've been summoned, they're here to watch this to the end. Jon Bjōrk says, "The court's call to the stand. Rhea sing."
Oh.
And a portal appears above the stand, and we hear, and Rhea drops out of this portal.
No.
And onto the mossy grass of the Fey Court, and stands up. All four of her artifice arms emerge quickly, and she's like all defensive, like her tattoos light up, and like some of the royal guard brandish spears at her.
No.
Hugo?
Whoa. Calm down, folks. Hey, Rhea. Ice. Hi.
Hugo?
Yep. It's one of those days.
She rolls her eyes, her arms retract, and she kind of holds her hands up like she's being held. "What can I do for you all?" And Jay sort of gestures the big dragon claw towards the stand, says,
If you would take the stand, Miss Singh.
Rhea, now taking in the scene she's been literally dropped into, with the dragon, the gathered folk host, and the resplendent tree throne, she shoots a final glare at you, Hugo, and says, "You are covering all my janitorial shifts for the month, Hugo Rashaad."
Yeah, obviously.
And she nods and will take up position on the witness stand, her arms folded, all four of them, and adopts a very cold and stoic expression, resolve settling on her face. The only sign of her temper and the adrenaline in her system now is a muscle in her eyebrow that refuses to stop twitching.
Miss Singh, could you describe your relationship with Hugo Rashaad?
Hugo and I work at a community center in Portland. She glances around. In the human realm.
And you were co-workers before, correct?
Yes.
Can you explain who your former employer was?
Hugo and I were docents at the Autumn Falls Natural History Museum, working for one Joseph Argyle. Someone like screams and faints.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
And Jay just says aloud,
The court will note one Joseph Argyle, noted whispered leader. Is it true that Mr. Argyle trained Hugo Rashaad in the ways of your organization?
"Yes, Joseph Argyle oversaw much of Hugo's early training."
What was that like?
Respectfully, that question would require me to divulge secrets which I have sworn to keep.
Your response is noted, Miss Singh. Could you then instead describe what sort of trainee Mr. Rashaad was?
And you see her like mulling her words carefully over. He was a troublemaker.
For you, specifically?
For our group.
Would that have anything to do with the prophecy of a catalyst?
I was not aware of such prophecy until it was brought to the attention of the Elders' Council. Jay says,
Did your own seer not address Hugo as this catalyst? A Miss Graves, I believe.
She did.
On more than one occasion?
Yes.
In the years since the revelation, has your organization grown its number at all, Miss Singh?
Yes.
Would you care to put a number to that?
I would not.
What about your splinter cell in the city of Seattle?
I am not involved in their work.
But you are aware of it?
I am.
Is Mr. Rashaad aware of it?
As far as I know.
And what role would you say he plays in this expansion?
Hugo Rashaad is not involved in the recruitment process.
But he does allow it under his leadership.
She glances to Hugo and Kabe and Whittaker and says, I would prefer not to answer.
Refusal to answer in the absence of a sworn oath or binding promise would place you in contempt, Miss Singh. If you would prefer not to vocalize an answer, you may submit a memory into evidence instead.
Rhea looks to you and Dr. Kabe, Hugo. She's not sure what her best option is here.
Honestly, Hugo doesn't know what the best move is either, but he will give Rhea a nod. He trusts whatever decision she's going to make.
She says, I will submit a memory. And this time Jay, with a long green talon, gently touches it to Rhea's forehead, and another memory projection is created. We see Rhea speaking to you, Hugo, while helping you kit up into your armor.
So, whatever stuff it is that you were talking with Lincoln about, well, be careful, please. We close at a certain time for a certain reason. You shouldn't really have people around with you after we've closed.
I understand, but it's that exact sort of agency meddling which is the reason I sometimes invite people here when we are closed.
Do me a favor and at least have a better alibi next time.
I will be adjusting the schedule.
Have fun. Not too much fun.
You too?
The memory fades and returns to Rhea, who sighs, knowing that was unhelpful for you.
I will ask again, Miss Singh. Is Hugo Rashaad aware of the recruitment efforts you are making to expand your number?
And she exhales deeply and says, Yes, he is aware and permits it.
Would you say that he is aware and permits the group in Seattle to do the same?
And Rhea, understanding now that she has been specifically selected in order to build up a damning case against you, Hugo, grits her teeth and says, I cannot speak for Carla Hernandez or the members of Las Muertas, nor will I offer any other memories to this court for review.
The Queen calls to Jay.
Prosecution. Your witness seems hostile and uncooperative. Are they in contempt of this court?
And Jay closes their eyes and gives a somber and somewhat discouraged sigh and says, The court should note this, Your Majesty.
Very well.
And her scepter, which she is holding, she sort of tilts the base of it towards Rhea, and a sparkling, dazzling ray shoots out towards her, and in a flash, there is now a goat on the stand.
Excuse me?
This isn't a kangaroo court at all.
Can someone explain to me what just happened?
How is that allowed?
Your friend is being held in contempt.
Fuck. Well, how do we undo that? I can't cross-examine a goat. Well, I can, but it will be, pretty one-sided.
Defense, if you wish to cross-examine, you will have to agree to a release of all of this witnesses' information relevant to the prosecution.
And who determines what is relevant to the prosecution?
Jon Bjōrk gestures towards himself and says,
There are questions I have not asked, but still could if the witness were cooperative. Memories also I have not pressed for, but could request.
Certain memories should never be put into public record.
Then she is your witness, Mr. Rashaad.
Oh my god.
Isn't it a conflict of interest that the court already has a beef with us? And by us, I mean, the Whispered itself, as a concept.
I think it does, but I think it's another one of those things. I'm gonna guess that it's another of those things that's just there for the drama. And I think the important bit is Jay doesn't have that same sort of bias against the Whispered that the King and Queen do. That's my understanding. Kabe, correct me if I'm wrong.
If you would like to protect your friend and our case from further questioning in this vein, our best move might be to decline cross-examination and move on. I doubt they would call further members of the Whispered when this is the likely outcome. They may even have called Miss Singh in order to demonstrate directly the adversarial opinion many from your group hold towards the folk. Jon Bjōrk may be slipping subtle support for your cause, Hugo Rashaad, but he is also a competent and experienced prosecutor, and bound to fulfill his duty in that role. We will need to get ahead of him if we hope to outmaneuver the case he is building against you. If we lose, the process for returning your friend to her proper form becomes complicated.
Have any of her answers really been all that significant? She's admitted that Hugo isn't directly responsible or involved in the whispered numbers growing.
So Hugo's going to use his hands for emphasis. Well, also, the whispered as an organization isn't growing. People are being taught things and in some cases given tattoos, but I don't think Rhea or Carla are making anyone swear the same oaths that we used to be required to.
The fact that you are uncertain of the details does not inspire confidence, Mr. Rashaad. And besides, I can tell you that any actions taken by individuals this court views as your subordinates will be considered your responsibility to answer for, unless we can form a stronger case regarding the splintered nature of your group, which at present I would say is doubtful at best.
Can we prove that he's not really very good at leading them?
Given the transformative effect Mr. Rashaad has had on their operations, I don't think that would be a prudent argument to attempt.
Transformative is certainly a word for it.
Oh, Whittaker, really?
The ghost stomps their hoof.
I'm sorry. It's your call, Hugo. If you think... I'll also say this real quick. I'm not sure exactly what to question her on right now, because some of the stuff she's talking about, I've got no idea about. But if you have things to ask her...
Rhea, bleat once for comfortable with talking. Bleat twice for not comfortable with talking.
She gives you the 2 bleats.
If she doesn't want to do it, I am not going to put her in a position that she has to.
Kabe stands and indicates for Rhea to join your gathered group and says to the king and queen,
The defense counsel waives our right to cross-examine this witness out of respect for her decision to refuse cooperation.
The queen scowls at your group's strategic play but nods curtly. Prosecution, your next witness then. And Jay gives like a heavy dragon sigh. Prosecution calls Falden Springleaf to the stand.
Now this bitch, we're gonna cross-examine like a motherfucker. Please proceed.
Falden emerges from the crowd. There's a parting, and we see him standing there with Sierra Bramble Point and Orion Dawnlight, waiting to be called upon, and he will strut forward. Rhea, in her little goat form, will just like come over and sit next to you, Hugo, and occasionally she will like kick you with her back leg. Jay approaches the witness stand and says, Mr. Springleaf, have you had interactions with Mr. Rashaad in the past? And Falden nods and says, I have. In fact, I believe I have memories I could volunteer to this court to help fill in some of the gaps which Miss Singh left in her testimony. And Jay nods and says, very well. Falden closes their eyes and a few motes emerge all together. Jay takes them and one by one puts them up into the air. Hugo or Whittaker, or both of you, read a bad situation in this moment.
How bad could it be?
It's a 12 for Whittaker.
I don't even know if I should bother. Oh, jeez. It's just gonna make it worse. Let's do it anyway. Yep, it made it worse.
Oh, baby.
It made it so much worse.
Was it a fail?
Oh, yeah. It's a 4.
Thank you, dice. Whittaker, why don't you ask me your questions first?
I don't remember if I've read a bad situation as advanced, but I did get a 12, and some of these questions, I'm like, other than, are there any dangers we haven't noticed?
You can do the adjusted rules where you can ask, like, a specific question about the topic if you have a 10+.
Yeah, I'm thinking, do we think it would be reliable for me to ask, is he about to lie? Like a false memory situation, or is it just because if it's a memory that has some pretty glaring fucking evidence, I don't really know if there's anything I can do.
I assumed he was just gonna offer up the memory of us fighting them in Seattle to paint us all in a bad light, but specifically Hugo.
Right.
Like, look at these people beating me up.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a question I can ask that would stop that. I don't know if I can object to that either. Best way to protect the victims, which is Hugo and me. What's most vulnerable to me, I think, is a fun one for a court situation. And any dangers we haven't noticed.
Okay. It is clear to you, right, dangers you haven't noticed yet.
Yes.
If Falden is volunteering this information, he must be pretty damn sure that it is quite damning evidence against Hugo and in favor of the charges.
Yeah.
So, whatever is coming up, you're going to have to try and spin or at least counter argument significantly.
Uh-huh.
But the fact that he is volunteering it maybe means that it's going to be quite biased, or that Falden is just so confident in Hugo being guilty that you could potentially find some memory of Falden's that might work in your favor if presented in the right way.
Yes, yeah. I would love, personally, if Falden has such a bad case of look at this bitch eating crackers that it's Hugo doing totally normal stuff, and he's like, look at how suspicious he is.
I do love that too.
I know it won't be that, because we know that's not true, but that would be so funny.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine.
You almost get the idea that what is about to be displayed will be a badly spliced together montage of memories that specifically paint Hugo and the Whispered in a very bad light.
Hugo and Whittaker brace themselves, I imagine.
Yeah. Best way to protect the victims so far, definitely don't find yourselves in contempt of court. You don't know what sort of other polymorphing the queen might have up her sleeve.
Foreshadowing. That 4 is going to do a lot.
We'll get to me asking questions of you and determining bad things soon. But let's get to Falden's memories. We see a view from the rooftop of the community center. You gather this is perhaps a night where Falden was spying on the training going on. And we see Rhea engaged in a sparring match with someone. And every once in a while, one of her artifice limbs will strike at them over their head and on their back. And when that happens, Zuri, who is off to the side, will just call out, point. And this person's like getting frustrated. They're like trying to pull on their tattoo magic to like create little barriers out of the air. But eventually they are subdued and held in the ground in an arm lock. And as they get up, they say, I don't know how I'm supposed to anticipate where you're going to come at me with those things. And Rhea grabs them by the shoulders and puts her hand like firmly on the side of their face. And we hear her say, and it echoes in the courtyard, you will never know where they are coming from. The folk are unpredictable. You have to be ready for anything when dealing with them.
God damn it.
Girl.
We cut to another vision of Zuri and Rhea losing it at the one folk who like came over to pick up their sign when the wind caught it and blew it onto the grass of the community center, and arguing with Falden. And like there are other scenes where like her words are taken out of context, etc. But we also see memories of Carla at the community center, sitting at a table, and we hear the end of a conversation as Falden is approaching the table. We hear, Miss Hernandez, Gwen's in a bit of trouble. Are you hurt? No. Who saw you? Some guy in a bunch of armor with a sword, and there was an angel. It wasn't one of ours. Take them to the kitchen. Thank you, Miss Carla. Thank you so much. Thank you. We see Falden and someone else leading Gwen into the kitchen. So Hugo, you gather that Falden was undercover at the soup kitchen, disguised as someone else.
I was wondering how he got that memory. Holy shit.
Yeah. Like I said, things are very exciting in this city.
Carla, have you folks been expanding?
People in this city need a way to defend themselves, Hugo. There are dangers on the streets.
You're not wrong. Hopefully the training that's been happening here has been going better than what's been going in my area.
Let's put you to work, Hugo.
You never ask. I have to pay back the favor anyway.
In the memory, Falden finally steps out of earshot, and this projection fades and ends. Thank you, Mr. Springleaf. Is there any other testimony you would like to provide regarding your observations of Mr. Rashaad over the past few months? And Falden smiles, glances at you, Hugo, and says, I would be happy to provide the court with a full account, and launches into, I'm not going to get into it because it would take too long, but like a long discourse describing the different interactions he's had with Hugo.
Objection, Your Honor. Unrelated to the charge at hand and also boring.
Yes.
The king, who's looked more unengaged than usual as Falden has been passionately recounting all the ways he thinks Hugo sucks, just makes a dismissive hand gesture and says, "Sustained." And Falden just like indignant. "Very well, I will cut to the chase. You want evidence of these witch hunters expanding their ranks?" And he removes one of his bracers, and a cloth that has been wrapped underneath it drops to the ground, and he holds his hand up into the air with a fist, and you see the whispered mark on his wrist.
Oh, shit!
And they will expand their number to anyone.
Now hold on.
That's a good thing, right?
I look over at Hugo like, man, what the fuck?
Hey, sects are sects. They do what they do.
Can we get the memory of that? I want to see what the circumstances were for that. I'm just curious now.
Yeah, no, Fallen looks to Jay and says, "Prosecutor, a final memory to divulge." And Jay nods and says, "Please, Mr. Springleaf." Another memory emerges and is displayed to the court, and we see him walking into the Whispered Tattoo Studio and saying, "Sorry, I'm late. I don't mean to disrespect your time and what this means to me. I thank you so much." And they sit him down in the chair, and he is given the whispered mark with Carla's ink magics. And the memory ends, and Falden says, "I will bear this mark for the rest of my life, but it will be worth it to take care of his ilk once and for all."
God, you're obsessed with him.
His ilk. He's technically part of that ilk now, right?
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, it is amazing to see someone far more enthusiastic about joining the Whispered than Hugo ever was.
At the same time, did they join the Whispered? Or did they just get a tattoo?
Kabe, as you two are conferring, says,
Objection. Authentication. If this last memory is to be accepted into evidence, I would request a more complete and thorough recounting from Mr. Springleaf. It is clear from reflections in that studio that he received that mark while glamoured.
And we can see, while incomplete in the haze of the memory projection, that yes, Falden recalls himself getting the tattoo, but in the shiny chrome of Carla's equipment, his reflection does not match his elvish self. Jay nods. "Mr. Springleaf, if you could provide further context for this incident." Falden begrudgingly nods, and the projection shifts. The memory we see is of Falden tracking someone out of the soup kitchen, and then multiple memories of them just keeping tabs on this person during their time in Seattle. And then a moment where we see this person being tied up and just left in an alley, and Falden looking at them very intently and then looking in a puddle on the ground and assuming their appearance and saying to Orion and Syrah, "Let's see how brazen they are with their recruitments." And then it leads into the memory of him rushing to the soup kitchen to get the tattoo.
Fey Court is insane, man. We're just admitting crimes left and right.
So then, you obviously deceived these witch hunters. This strongly weakens, if not completely undercuts, your previous point, Mr. Springleaf.
Dr. Kabe, you are out of order. Mr. Springleaf is still my witness, and as such, he is not to be subjected to cross-examination at this time. In spite of Jay cutting off Kabe's remarks, Falden glares at Kabe and says harshly, "If these witch hunters were acting with even a modicum of the restraint and care that Hugo Rashaad claims to adhere to, they might not have been so susceptible to a simple illusion spell. And even so, use of the Changeling Protocol is one of the most basic of folk tactics for determining the true hearts and motivations of mortals. What I observed during my investigation fully supports the case against this man." And he gestures firmly at Hugo before continuing. "Mr. Rashaad and the defense may argue that the witch hunter's disorganization and internal secrecy absolve him from the actions of his people, but as we know from our own history, humans will forsake friends and pin blame whenever and wherever it is most convenient when they are backed into a corner. given my direct experiences, it is obvious that Hugo Rashaad is allied with and supports the witch hunters in Seattle. And Falden will project another series of memories, showing Carla greeting Hugo warmly when he arrived at the soup kitchen, Hugo fighting the Leshy and Falden's group with Las Muertas, and he and Hugo's final confrontation during the fight with the arboreal Hydra. Jay looks to Falden and says, "Is there anything else you would like to share before you are cross-examined, Mr. Springleaf?" Falden nods, and he begins to describe his interactions with Declan Stone and the group in Seattle creating the counterfeit Philosopher's Stones. He gets fairly emotional and pulls another glowing memory from himself and prepares to display it. "Find your courage and witness what terrible magic these witch hunters have wrought." "Don't worry about it, my friend. Take a walk right in there."
What abominable work are you doing here, witch hunter?
"Shut up, elf. Go back to your plant witch and do your damn job." As this memory fades, the courtroom erupts with nervous whispering, and the queen looks to her husband and says, "Grave accusations indeed." The king now has both hands clasped together, fingers interlocked, deep in consideration of what has been relayed, and he nods solemnly. Anyone keen would see a tear leave the corner of his eye as the Philosopher's Stones are described.
That's worrisome and saddening.
Yeah. A day.
Yeah.
Whittaker doesn't have the ability to offer the memory you and I were talking about, but I'd really keep it in mind.
Oh.
We don't gotta start with it. You simmer on that one. I'll let you simmer on that.
So, Jay then says, "The prosecution is satisfied. Your witness, Dr. Kabe." Kabe looks contemplative. It's clear that the mood in the court is shifting against all of you, and he seems to be considering what your next move should be. He glances at you, Whittaker.
We need to establish doubt in the validity of his testimony, or this elf will spell the end for us.
You two, figure out the play. I'm gonna stall for you. And Whittaker's gonna stand up and approach Falden. Just for clarity for the court, all of the memories you've offered have been examples of Carla gathering folks for the Whispered and of Rhea training folks for the Whispered. You've not actually witnessed Hugo doing any of these things. Is that correct?
I have seen him putting up flyers, inviting all together at his center. Is this not propaganda or an invitation?
Falden, are you aware of what a community center is? Are you aware of what a community is? Are you aware of what friendship is, Falden Springleaf?
Regardless of what you might claim its purpose is, I think I have demonstrated to this court what it is actually being used for. A facade which hides illicit activities.
All right, let's come at this another way. Mr. Springleaf, is it true that you've been observing Mr. Rashaad for quite some time?
Yes. I swore to uncover the depths of his wickedness and discover what nefarious schemes he might be enacting against the princess.
Would you be willing to share a few more memories regarding the times you were keeping an eye on him? For example, your protests outside his community center? I'd like the court to witness some of that activity.
Falden agrees. And over the next few minutes, we watch through the projected memories almost as a time lapse, the group of folk gathering outside across from the community center to protest. Hugo comes out with a table and some coffee and donuts. A few people from the protest walk over and take some. Then night comes and they disperse. And then this repeats several times in rapid succession, showing the numerous but otherwise peaceful and non-confrontational exchanges Hugo has had with Falden and the folk over several months.
Fair to say, then, that the overwhelming majority of what you've observed Mr. Rashaad doing at his center are, in fact, those exact activities to which his propaganda advertises. And Whittaker turns to Kabe and asks, can we actually submit this propaganda as evidence?
Kabe reaches into his briefcase and pulls out one of these simple flyers to hand to you. And it just says, like, movie night. Popcorn and cookies and ice cream social, such and such date. All to support the construction of the new gymnasium.
Oh my word.
Charity project.
Yeah.
Truly an all-powerful witch hunter who has to beg for money from the local community to rent out Avengers 2 for the evening.
Okay, that's...
Sorry, Hugo.
Yeah. Oh, that hurts.
Hugo, do you have any questions you want to ask Falden?
Hugo approaches the bench. Falden, if I may ask, can you explain to the court why you were in Seattle?
He says, I was told you would be there. I assume wherever you go, there will be nefarious acts to document.
And who told you that I would be there?
You see him grit his teeth and set his jaw. Drake Fowler. And there was a couple of murmurs amongst the crowd. Oh, the exile, the banished, Drake Fowler, da-da-da, you know.
That motherfucker.
So upon hearing everyone's reactions, Hugo takes a breath and he's going to slow down a little bit. For the benefit of the court, would you be willing to share again your memory of our last interaction when we were at odds in Seattle?
A memory emerges from Falden, and we see Falden's hand gripping a sword, which is in your side, Hugo, during the fight against the tree hydra, and him saying, I cannot stop.
You were, in fact, bound by a contract with Mr. Fowler during this conflict, correct?
Yes. We agreed to protect his interests, and in exchange, he assured us we would discover your involvement in the situation affecting that city.
Could you recount to the court what your understanding of my involvement in that situation was?
It was clear you made contact with Carla Hernandez, whom we had already observed sharing witch hunter magic with a sizable portion of the local community. We also witnessed those same recruits being preyed upon by other witch hunters to perform obscene alchemy. This self-consuming behavior presented a paradox of motives I have yet to discern the true purpose of.
Based on this, is it possible that people bearing this mark, and Hugo indicates the whispered flame at his wrist, might operate independently of one another, and in fact, stand in conflict with each other? Is it possible the whispered are no longer a unified monolith?
It would seem there is a possibility they have become disjointed, but this does not rule out the possibility of a shepherd overseeing multiple flocks of sheep.
Perhaps. But as we have seen, thanks to your thorough testimony and submission of evidence, your own memories do not support that accusation.
What? You are in no position.
That'll be all, Mr. Springleaf.
Falden looks furious, but as you have finished questioning, there is nothing more he can say as regards this case. The Queen is the epitome of statuesque frustration. Her lips pursed into a thin line before she says, Prosecution, your next witness. The prosecution would call one Anya, Princess of the Summer Court, to the stand. Hello, adventurers. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's wonderful to be back again after our holiday break. Thank you all for your patience and for letting me give myself some time off over the holidays. I went to visit family and needed some recovery after one crazy year of trips and events. There is still a lot to do, but your support means the world to me and our team, and it's going to help us do some very cool stuff this year. Speaking of cool accomplishments, our promo swap this week is with our friends over at the Monsters Playbook. They recently wrapped up their Monster of the Week campaign. Yeah, the whole thing. If you're caught up with our story and need something to fill your binge media slot, check out their story and enjoy their particular brand of multidimensional lore, a plethora of mysterious organizations, and a dynamic and evolving cast of characters. For those of you who might not have heard it before, let's listen to their trailer.
The infinite hallway has been closed. It took a year for an unlikely trio to manage to seal dozens of holes in the fabric of reality. But I can see the threads of fate. I know there is more in store for them in this world and in another. I see Kira Ashwood, the journalist who still bears the scars from her cult days, rising in great and terrible power. I see the supernatural social outcast, Mark Clayton, his abilities expanding and evolving, growing without limit, without explanation. I see the one they've yet to meet, a sorceress from between worlds, yet drawn to power and burdened by legacy. I see the extra-normal investigator, Casey Davis, but for the moment, I am one of the few who does. I can see what's next. I can see it all unfolding, each chosen path. How does it end? Even I don't know for sure. Join us on the Monsters Playbook.
The Monsters Playbook is an actual play Monster of the Week podcast with new episodes released every other Tuesday. Come check us out on Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can find the Monsters Playbook online at monstersplaybook.com. You know you can also find the Storyteller Squad on all major podcast apps and platforms, and even YouTube. If you want short clips to show your friends when you're recommending the show, or just want to see the squad and I running around the real world as we make appearances at conventions, head over to our social accounts, at Story Squad Cast, on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. You can catch major event announcements there, but also more real-time announcements and updates, including when we sometimes need to delay, usually happen over on our community Discord. Listen, I know who I am. I will overload and overschedule myself in 2025 at some point. We all just have to accept and be at peace with that. If you haven't made use of any of the links in our episode description and any of this sounds good to you, that's where to look and be sent forth to find us on the great wide internet. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to our patrons. Thank you for contributing and helping us to cover some of our production and operating costs. This year, I am giving TSS and all of the many tasks it takes to get a series like ours to succeed my full-time effort. We'll see where this path ahead takes us, but the support of our patrons has never been more important. If you can afford to become a member, you will join the ranks of adventurers helping us to continually improve the quality of our production and pay for the development of new and exciting additions to our merch lines, website, and more. And if you can't manage a pledge, there are plenty of free ways to support the work we're doing. Spreading the word about the show online or in person, or taking the time to leave a written review all really help our episodes reach new listeners and future fans. Getting the word out is hard in the saturated sea of media these days, which is why sincere recommendations are still one of the best ways for new people to take interest in a show like ours. And the more of you there are, the more we can create for you all. If it wasn't clear, I'm going to be on a real community kick this year. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season. If this time of year is difficult for you, I understand. This was the first holiday season in a long time that I felt some of the joy and peace that are supposed to come every year around this time. Life doesn't always move in alignment with annual retail cycles. If comfort and care didn't come for you this year in other forms, I hope our show can bring those things to you now and in the days to come. You deserve it, and we're happy to provide what we can here at the Storyteller Squad. Take care of each other, adventurers. I'll see you next time. We cut back over to the group of hunters gathered at Merlin's cottage. While the tea party has been put away, there are now just cups of various caffeinated liquids sort of dispersed throughout the many stacks of books that are laid out in the lawn at Merlin's place on picnic blankets.
Yeah, it went from tea party to study party.
Study hall. Yeah, exactly.
With refreshments.
Yeah, Nana Margie, again, reached into her rucksack of holding and just, calling, Blueberry, get us a box of munchkins. So you're snacking on donut holes and sipping on coffee as you read through ancient texts.
Some of the worst snacks to have while flipping through really old books. Things that get sugar all over your hands and condensation of an iced coffee. This is the worst.
Yeah, you totally see Nana Margie just flipping through a thing and the jelly from the half bitten into munchkin just falls onto a page. She doesn't skip a beat and just keeps turning the pages.
Oh, God.
Nana Margie gives zero fucks.
Page is never going to come unstuck again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just glad we get to do all this in the Havens. This would be miserable if we had to do this on the material plane.
It's just reading. What's the difference?
No, he's right. I do all my reading here.
Okay. It does seem a little nicer. What kind of books are we reading?
Whatever you want.
Oh.
I guess you should probably roll Investigate a Mystery to try and parse where things might be.
Yeah.
That would make sense. Maybe we should play the game that we're playing.
Yeah. Are we each rolling Investigate a Mystery just to see what we find?
I want at least you and Raven too, since Damien is sort of conferring with what Nana Margie is researching and copying down a list of ingredients and such. I think probably a lot of what you're up to, Damien, is her reading off a list and then referencing or saying all right, look it up in that book over there. And they're visual indexes of spell ingredients versus just this big compendium. So you're sort of getting pictures and figuring out how am I going to identify these things if we come across them in our search.
I got a 10.
Ooh.
I got an 8.
Nice.
Did you want me to roll or does this 6 not count?
Oh, no. Okay, no, that's fine. Your 6 will mean things. That works perfectly, actually, Durs. So
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Durs and the dice. However, Raven, you rolled a 10. What questions do you want to ask me? Again, you are trying to figure out how to find lost memories. That is the question at hand.
I think my 2 questions are, where did it go and what is being concealed here?
Okay. I like that. And Amity, what's yours?
I got an 8. So,
maybe what happened here?
Yeah, let's just go with what happened here.
Amity.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw it right back at you. You're at Merlin's cottage. What happened here?
Oh, no. Oh, God, we're getting into this? Okay.
Ooh, Amity lore.
Ugh.
I think in this moment you are sitting on a stump. Gilly's maybe next to you, flipping through a book. Whispers curled up in a little ball at your feet or in your lap. And you start to reminisce a little bit because you're back here. The feeling is the same. You have a lot of memories of this place.
Yeah.
Well, let's start at the beginning.
God damn it. Okay. A significantly more optimistic feeling and newly minted Amity shows up at the door of Merlin's cottage. Literally just dubbed herself Amity, dressed in the same poofy patchwork yellow dress we've come to know and love her for wearing, carrying the same staff, notably not wearing a hat. And she trepidatiously, but loudly, knocks on the door.
There's a long pause, and then the door creaks open a couple inches, and the interior of the cottage is dark. And you see a shadowed figure standing there, peering out the crack in the door. And they say, "Who are you? What do you want?"
Hi, I'm Amity. Morgan sent me. She said that you could teach me some stuff. And I really need some help.
No. And this person shuts the door in your face.
Amity takes a second to compose themselves because they weren't expecting to have the door slammed in their face, and then they knock again.
You hear from within the cottage, "Go away." And then you hear footsteps quickly scrambling back to the door, and when it opens, they peek out again. I don't know if you heard me. I was in the other room. Go away. Shut the door.
Oh.
Before they can shut the door, I think Amity wedges her staff into like,
Oh yeah, like right in the corner at the bottom.
yeah, so that they can't fully slam it.
Hey, what are you doing?
Please, come on. Morgan really said you would help me out if I asked.
Well, I don't know where they got that idea. I'm not a teacher.
Are you sure? Because I got a lot of people kind of depending on me, and I really want to get back to them, but like I need to get some stuff under control, and Morgan said you could help me out.
The figure disappears into the house, and there's some rummaging and the sound of footsteps on hardwood. And they return, and they hand over a piece of paper. It's like a little strip of parchment, and they kind of like waggle it in front of you, like to take it.
She reaches out with one hand and takes it.
If you flip it over and read it, it says, "Doctor's note," doctor is misspelled, "can't do it, period."
I cannot.
So you see, I've got documentation. Not gonna happen.
I'm pretty sure you're lying.
What would make you think that?
I mean, it seems awfully convenient for you to suddenly have a note from your doctor saying that you can't do it. You literally spelled doctor incorrectly with a K and an ER at the end.
I happen to have many doctors that I know,
Uh-huh.
and all of them agree that I certainly can't do it.
What are their names? What hospitals do they work at?
They huff and puff and sort of like, you can hear them like running their fingers through their hair and just like, damn you. I don't want to.
Why not?
Seems like it'd be really hard. Can I have like a day to think about it?
Fine.
Fine.
But I'll be waiting right over there. And she points at a stump that's just perfectly positioned, just a few yards away from the house.
Mm-hmm.
And she takes her staff out of the door and she goes over and she sits down facing the house.
You just hear them mutter as you walk away. What a weirdo. Close the door. And then throughout the afternoon, as you sit there on that stump watching the house, you can see occasionally a curtain will be lifted or like a little face will like peek out from under a flower pot in the garden. Or at one point, you see someone trying to scramble their way out of the chimney and then get stuck and then kind of futz around for a while and finally just like throw their arms up, and that causes them to fall down the rest of the way again. It's like a big clattering. Oh, fuck! Ow!
Oh. There's another knock at the door, and before like an answer can happen, "Are you okay?"
I think at that point, the door just kind of swings open. And you can now see inside, though it's dimly lit, this long, lanky person just sort of like in a crumpled pile in the fireplace, just sort of wincing and like grabbing at their knee.
Oh, and then she's just gonna push the door open and make her way inside, and she's gonna help them stand up.
I think before you can touch or approach them in any way, they kind of like are just wincing, and then you stop in front of the fireplace and they look up. And they punch with their hand into the bricks of the fireplace. And they go, "Traitor, ow."
Maybe you shouldn't punch bricks. That doesn't seem like a good idea.
It's fine. I think I will live. And they kind of roll out of the fireplace and stand up. You can see they've got like a scrape on their knee, and they're like now holding their hand like,
Uh-huh.
Amity is just gonna help themselves to the kitchen.
mm-hmm. It is a mess. There's dishes stacked, piles and piles of them.
Oh my God. Do you live here by yourself?
Sometimes. Why?
It's messy. How do you eat?
Sometimes I don't.
That's not very healthy.
I don't recall asking you.
And that you just hear like a rustling in the kitchen as like Amity digs out like a kettle.
Yeah, they like stalk over and just like peer around the door frame, just like peeking at you.
And she's definitely started amassing like some basic like healing herbs and stuff like that. She starts pulling out some things and she's gonna fix them a little healing herbal tea. And when it's done and when it's ready, she'll go over, found the cleanest cup she could find and just stick it in their face. Drink it.
Yeah. Sniffs it and like dip their tongue into it. Not poisoned.
Why would I want to poison you if I want you to teach me?
I don't know. I don't know you.
I told you, I'm Amity.
Oh yeah. I guess I do. Know you, that is.
Mm-hmm.
You are confounding, Amity.
Right back at you.
They sip the tea. And then their eyes go kind of wide and they look in the cup and they're like, this is very good.
Thank you. Nana Margie taught me.
I have work to do. And they can't do the cup back and then go off into like a room that has papers and books scattered about.
Amity is just going to shadow them and watch them work.
Okay. You see them furiously writing something. Seems like it might be a letter because they then fold it up into like a little airplane shape. Tap 3 times on the table and a window just kind of opens without them doing anything. And they throw the paper airplane out and it sort of flits and takes off into the woods.
Incredible.
Teach them to send me solicitors? Can't believe those two.
Not a solicitor, a student.
And then Amity's going to go wash the dishes.
And over the course of the next few, days here at Merlin's cottage, you go around cleaning things up, often later to be berated as they say, what did you do to my mess?
God.
It was a mess, so I cleaned it.
But I've been working on that mess for weeks. You've no idea how long it takes to accumulate such clutter and debris.
Why would you want so much clutter and debris?
Do I ask you questions about your personal life?
I mean, no, you don't. You just kind of ignore me.
Well, that is true. Like, go back to doing whatever they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And this continues for, quite a few days. You watch them, working aimlessly and sort of sporadically on different spells and ingredient mixing. You start to pick up a little bit of techniques you hadn't seen Morgan or Nana Margie show you, or even Gilly. I think at one point you see them reach out and without a staff or any sort of incant or hand gesture, they just sort of reach out and a book comes off a shelf and flies over to them. And they take it and flip it open in a fashion that's a little familiar to you.
Amity I think she tilts her head. It's been a while since she's tried to use this magic, but this feels safe.
Mm-hmm.
And similarly, she'll put a hand out and a book will float off the shelf and come to her hand. I haven't seen anyone else do that before.
They turn in their seat and regard you and they say, do what?
Amity makes the book float. It does like a little spin and then settles back in her hand.
You see their hand grip the chair that they are on so tightly that their knuckles go white. So that's what you are. Damn it. Follow me. They stand up and walk outside.
Okay.
Amity puts down the book, follows Merlin outside.
As you walk out into the light, you see they have already reached their hands out towards the woods. And now emerging past the trees are several large stones and rocks and boulders, which sort of drop down in a line in the clearing near the house. And they turn and they say, show me what you can do.
I think she's gotten into the habit by now of carrying her staff around with her. And, there's a little bit of apprehension on her face, but it's just the two of them. There's no one else around. So she'll lean the staff up against the house, turn to one of these boulders that has settled itself, and almost like she's pushing against gravity, moves her hand outward, and then turns her hands and the boulder lifts.
Do you think it takes a lot of effort, Amity?
I think it takes a lot of effort for her to keep her cool.
Mm.
And after a minute, the boulder starts trembling and she's trembling. And she starts to breathe a little heavily in an anxious manner, not in a exhausted manner. And then the boulder just bursts into little bits.
The shards of this rock fly towards you and the cottage and whisper, but a few feet away from you, they impact with some kind of barrier and impact and then roll down its side and into the grass. And you feel a hand on your shoulder. We'll start lessons tomorrow. And over the next few days, Amity, you, after having shadowed and cleaned and sort of observed this strange wizard, you begin training. And Merlin, as they finally officially introduce themselves to you, puts you through your paces. You do quite a few of these experiments where they will perform something and then ask you to replicate it. They will challenge you while you are enacting these powers and have you explore the full gamut of your spellcasting talents as you have learned them from your other teachers. But they push you a lot and quite hard, and they are not gentle about it either, except at the end of the day. We're at the end of each session where they say, okay, no more today. Get rest. You will need it for tomorrow. And that goes on for a while. You lose track of how many days of this repeat in the same fashion. And I think we get to a ways into this training. They begin the lesson. They say, all right, my garden's been kind of dry. Make it rain.
Amity takes a moment to concentrate. And I think we get that sort of, I've used this descriptor before, but it's like her hair starts floating up around her.
Mm-hmm.
And she half closes her eyes and concentrates. And I think we hear the faint rumble of thunder as gray clouds start to come in.
In this moment, Amity, you're reaching out instinctively.
Mm-hmm.
As you do, though, you start to realize it's not just by feeling. There are certain things you're doing on a muscle memory level, but it makes sense the more you reach out and feel for it. You feel the atmosphere, the air and the particles of it and the different pressure variations. You feel the moisture gathering in these clouds. You feel the charge in the ground building up. You feel the grass standing on end. You feel the energy of the living things here as they flee a storm or seek shelter. As the wind moves, you feel its current and you feel energy is being manipulated now as you instinctually conduct a storm into being. The howling wind gets louder and louder. You open your eyes and see that you have risen into the air 5 or 6 feet. You see Whisper on the ground, their blue fire tail whipping in the wind. You see Merlin has been shouting, "Stop!" And a bolt of lightning strikes the ground near Merlin and Whisper. A couple more hit a tree nearby and it falls and sort of doesn't hit the cottage, but very near to it. The windows rattle and the door swings and slams on its hinges. Things out on the line are blown away into the tree line. Roll use magic to get this under control.
Okay. It is a 10.
You regain control of the magic that had gone a little chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
The skies don't clear, but they lighten. The rumbles die down, and you touch down on the grass. And Merlin, who has been pacing back and forth in a little 4-foot spot of the grass, kind of scratching at the side of their head and running their fingers through their hair more, just stupid, such a bad idea, so dumb, oh my god. Seemingly very upset, but containing it as best they can.
Amity touches down and just goes, "Sorry, I overdid it a little bit."
Yeah, you think? They gesture at the fallen tree.
Oh.
This is why I didn't want to do this, because I am not a teacher. Certainly not a good one.
I mean, I think you've done a pretty good job so far.
Don't you get it? This power. And they kind of gesture rapidly and violently, and the tree that is on the ground lifts and then is thrown into the tree line.
Oh, shit.
It sort of smacks into some others and just goes crashing and tumbling away from the house. And they sort of manically just grab at the sides of their face. And again, they're wide-eyed. They're just I'm making it up. I don't know anything about this power other than what I learned to do with it. It doesn't work. If you try to control it, it just gets worse. There's no way to keep it under control, Amity. I would know. I was the first conduit.
There's definitely a stunned expression on Amity's face. It starts off being stunned, and then she starts walking towards Merlin, and I think it kind of turns into wonder.
They're standing there, their arms just like limp at their sides, like trying to catch their breath.
I know it's not perfect, but maybe we can learn from each other. Maybe we can help each other. I don't really understand what being a conduit means.
They sink down into the grass. They let their knees fold. They kind of look up at the clouds and they say, means being lonely.
Oh, God.
Amity sits down next to Merlin in the grass, shoulder checks them gently. I mean, we're not alone right now. There's two of us. That's gotta mean something.
As you sit in the grass, we come back from this flashback as you were sitting there on the stump. And as you open your eyes, Merlin is standing behind you with a book that they're holding. Reminiscing, huh?
Just a little bit.
Raven,
Yes.
as you watch Amity and Merlin standing there a little ways from the house, you make out glinting fragments of light or dust. It's one of the two, maybe both. And they are gathering between the two of them on the grass in shapes that resemble Amity and Merlin. The two of them hold this moment of memory together. Eventually, they go back to reading, they go back to thinking about something else. And this faint outline of them and these little motes of light and dust disperse into the air. As you let your eyes rest in that middle distance, you see in the air here, there are those little bits of dust and light. There are things here in the air, little bits of magic. Raven, you put together that memories here, they exist, but in tiny pieces, fragments that were broken or scattered in order to fuel other magical binding effects like promises and deals. Now, does that mean Hugo's memories are here? Possibly. But how to get them becomes the question. It would be like trying to mine gold from the atmosphere. Particles might exist, but filtering them all into something cohesive and whole would be a massive magical undertaking.
Is it safe to assume that those were stronger because both Amity and Merlin were re-experiencing these memories, and that's why Raven could see that happening so strongly, whereas other memories might be like existing but not so clearly because they're not reminiscing on it?
Mm-hmm.
So people's conscious memory in their head can also affect and like bring it to the surface.
I wouldn't even say that like the memory fragments you were seeing were the memory that they have, right? Because their memories are here with them.
Yeah.
But these fragments of memory are sort of reacting to a strong reminiscence between these two powerful spellcasters, right?
Interesting.
It's an echo through the memory particles that just sort of permeate existence here in the Havens, like pollen.
Yeah.
Forces of attraction between these memory fragments allowed them to mirror something that exists as a wholeness in Amity and Merlin.
Mm-hmm.
But once they moved on, the fragments just sort of went back to being a scattered, chaotic grouping of particles.
So how do we do that again, but with Hugo's missing memories?
Exactly. He can't reminisce about them because they are literally in tiny pieces throughout all of the Havens.
But Anya remembers, right? Those are the memories we're trying to access as the two of them together early on.
Potentially. I mean, Anya's going to have her own version of those memories.
Mm-hmm.
Kabe said that you wanted to get Hugo's specifically.
Yes. I was hoping maybe Anya's version could help pull Hugo's in somehow. So it's not just memories created in the Havens, it's like in general, memories as a concept are scattered about here. It's not just specifically because those memories happened here. It's like It could be anywhere.
It could be a memory from anything. It's just whatever these things are, they are reactive to memory, which makes you think they might be related and that they could be pieces of memories that were sort of churned up and atomized, if you want to think of it that way, as payment for Fey magic to take place.
Okay.
They can't be destroyed, but they were converted into a different form.
If they were converted into a different form, how do we convert it back?
You'd have to collect them.
Oh, boy.
You can also share this with everyone else who's researching in the moment.
Yes. She takes a very long time to witness all of that and then processing all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if it's still visible, Raven would nudge Damien. Do you see that?
Damien squints. Yeah, it looks like little sparkles or something.
I think those have to do with memories. I think if we can get enough of it together, I don't fully know, but there's something here. If we get enough of it all together, I think we can get Hugo's memories back.
Climbing onto a chair and then climbing onto the table, Gilly Doo comes up beside you. What do you see?
The shimmery, kind of sparkly stuff over near Amity and Merlin.
Oh my. And they shoot a very excited look at you.
Have you ever seen that before? Is that normal?
No, that's new.
Oh.
But it's not the first time they've done something new. And they sort of glance back over at Amity and Merlin.
The three of us are all just staring at them.
I think Nina Margie kind of looks up from her book. Oh, we playing a staring game? What's going on?
Do you see it? And Raven will gesture.
Her wrinkled eyes go wide. Holy smokes. She gives like a big toothy grin. Oh, we're gonna need the real rare stuff. And starts pouring through like the back pages of this tome of ingredients. You need a 3-day-old diamond. You need... He's just like naming a bunch of like impossible things.
Oh, God.
Merlin turns.
I think Amity turns with them and is just like, what?
Oh, it's like synchronized? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like synchronized.
We're all just talking and pointing at them, gesturing.
Oh, fuck me. We did it again.
Did what?
Let's go find out.
Okay.
You pop up from the stump and walk back over to the group. And together, you all put together this idea that if there are fragments of memory throughout the Havens, there must be fragments of Hugo's. And if you could figure out a spell powerful enough that would attract the same fragments from the same memory together, you might be able to return and restore the memories that Hugo lost. If you can collect them.
Gotta catch 'em all. Sorry.
Merlin, as they're like looking over things, and they've got like a chalkboard that they've brought out now and are like writing little like rune equations and things, being like, and then if you carry the quotient here and like calculate the volume of all the havens, and just like start doing insane magical mathematics. They kind of just stand and like dust their chalk covered fingers off on their poncho that they wear. Whew. Yeah. I mean, if we can do it, it's with everybody here for sure.
Like right now?
Not now. No, we need some of those ingredients that Margie's talking about. But
Okay.
It's a lot of magic to control.
Uh-huh.
Well, they kind of shoot you a look, Amity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, obviously. I know what you mean.
All right. We can get the base going here. You guys got to go fetch some stuff. What do you think, Marge? And she's like continuing to jot things down. She's like, yeah, look, I get the list goes on and on. She kind of nudges a scroll and it does that thing where it like rolls off the table and then like goes like down the lawn. Like it's long ass fucking thing.
CVS receipt. I understand.
Yeah. She says, how about you, Mr. Chef? You want to keep track of this?
Damien has been scribbling notes the entire time. So every random ingredient has been scribbled down. I'm happy to keep writing stuff down, and I think there's some substitutions we could use in a few of these, but I think the real catch is we've got to put something together as an anchor point for Hugo's memories specifically, but because his memory's wiped, we'd have to get it from Anya, and they're kind of busy right now, but if we could figure out like if their big moment was carving their initials on a tree or riding a Ferris wheel or I don't know, but we should probably have something to anchor and not just put a bunch of things into a pot and start stirring.
They did get engaged though, right? Do we know if Hugo gave her a ring?
Ooh.
See, now we're on to something.
Oh, wait. The usual routine, it's this sort of big inhale in, raises her staff, strikes it down, and she sends a sending to...
Dude, do it to Anya as she's walking through the fucking door.
Oh my god.
How
oh my god.
funny would that be?
Hi, Your Highness, sorry to bother you. I know you have a lot going on right now, but did Hugo give you a ring when you got engaged? And if so, can we borrow it?
Yes!
This is Amity, by the way.
God.
Waiting just outside the doors of the court, her attendants seeing to her, the royal guard having processed her here from her chambers. Anya is resplendent. Her dress is layers upon layers of ruby and gold lacework. Gold and copper headpiece has been woven into her hair to create sun rays. And Amity, your message comes through on the wind, and Anya hears it in her mind. She just takes a very sharp inhale, and she reaches for her neck and takes a pendant. It has the royal seal of Savenwylde on it. And delicately, she opens this seal, and inside is an engagement ring. She takes the pendant off her neck, whispers something to it, and lets go, and it flies from the courtroom as the doors are opening, and it's Princess Anya of the Summer Court, and Jay is calling her as a witness, and she just sort of lets it go and takes the first step and walks into the courtroom.
Nice.
Oh, there's something really heartbreaking about that. Oh, okay.
Butterflies fly forward, songbirds enter and flit about and then land on branches in silence as Anya slowly makes her way towards the witness stand. Screaming through the haven skies and into the haven where Merlin's cottage is, this golden light flies and stops just in front of you, Amity, and the amulet sits there floating in the air, waiting for you to grasp it.
Amity just quietly goes, holy shit, that worked. And she's gonna reach out and take the amulet.
You can see that it opens and there is a ring inside.
There's like a little bit of a sad expression on her face because she kind of didn't want to be right, but also, yay, she was right.
Yay.
She just gingerly takes it out of the pendant and just holds it up in like Damon's direction. You said something about like an anchor?
Holy shit, that worked.
Nana Margie pulls out peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in like Ziploc bags and hands them to all of you. She says, now you all are going to have to go for a hike while we prepare the basis for the spell here. And here, actually, she goes and takes her book and she's flipped to like the very last page of the book. Now there's one ingredient. I've never worked with it myself. It's very rare, apparently, but it's said to be extremely powerful at divining and seeking out the true nature of things. So if you can get one of these, that might be the real secret ingredient, as they put it.
What is it?
What's the ingredient?
Well, kid, you're gonna want to find a Jabberwock tooth.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, no. Oh, boy. Okay. Oh, she just gives Merlin this like very long, exhausted look. Because I feel like she's heard about them before. Maybe not seen one, but she's heard about them before.
Mm-hmm.
So like just the one tooth. What do we do with the rest of the teeth?
I like this guy. He's got spunk.
I know nothing about these creatures. I assume they have more than a single tooth.
Oh, they do. Yep, they got a lot of them.
Anya approaches the witness stand and takes her position there. You see Kabe running his thumbs along the sides of his briefcase in sort of a nervous gesture of like, okay, here's like, you thought Falden was a lot of evidence? Here we go. He seems tense and almost like a dog on a strained leash, or, a horse in its stall at the races. Like he is ready and tense and ready to try his best to prevent this from being catastrophic for y'all's case.
Wow, that makes me feel so at ease.
Am I properly setting the stakes?
Kabe is rattled.
Jay says, Highness, do you hold any malice against Hugo for deciding to forget your first courtship?
Ooh! Sorry, I didn't mute. I'm so sorry. God.
No, that's canon now. Someone else in the courtroom made that noise.
Yeah.
Just uncontrollably someone watching.
Silence that person! They turn into a rock.
No!
Oh, boy.
Anya remains calm. She says, No. It doesn't bother you at all that he has no memories of that time. It bothers me sometimes, yes. Do you feel that his efforts to rekindle your relationship over the last few years have been earnest and genuine? Yes, it's been slow. I didn't want to push him, and he's been very busy.
Oh.
Could you elaborate on that? Objection. Vague or ambiguous.
Yes.
Queen Maeve looks at her daughter on the pulpit and she just says, Sustained. Anya just says to Jay, Not without instruction from counsel. Very well. Are you aware of Mr. Rashaad's illegal activities within the human realm? Objection. Leading the witness. The king in his seat. Also sustained. Jay, you see some of the ferns and leaves on their crest ripple down their spine. They roll their shoulders a little bit. How does Mr. Rashaad's continued cooperation with the Eastie Agency sit with you? Objection. Relevance.
Objection, he is not cooperative.
The queen takes note of both of these and gives a nod. Jay goes on. Do you think Hugo Rashaad loves you as much as you love him? Objection, speculation, objection in kind. Am I to be allowed to question my witness or not? The king, who's had his hands covering his eyes for this section of questioning, suddenly sits up and makes eye contact with Kabe and you, Whittaker, and Hugo, and says, The court reminds the defense they will have the opportunity to cross-examine. Obstruction of these proceedings will be considered impolite. A hush falls over the courtroom. No one wants to step out of line now that the king is fully paying attention. Jay looks to Kabe, who gives him a nod and sits back down. Princess, in the last 2 years, has Hugo Rashaad dedicated himself more to the relationship between the two of you or to his involvement with the witch hunters? Anya glances at you, Hugo, and tries to keep her gaze on Jay. She says, I feel Hugo has been more than generous with his time, and I would not ask him to choose between me or his friends. Even so, do you wish he was not associated with the witch hunters? Again, she makes eye contact with you, Hugo, and this time she maintains it as she answers. Yes.
Ow. Owie.
Oof a doof.
Jay will say to all of you as he sort of looks apologetically at your group, Your witness, counsel.
Maybe we have Amity reach out and say, don't talk to Anya yet.
Yeah.
You could do that if we like that.
Now that we have the ring, we should say, don't talk to her yet. We gotta figure our shit out and then talk to her last.
Yeah. I like that because that'll rekindle communication between these two otherwise disparate groups.
We're working on it. We have a plan, but we're not ready yet. Stall.
Ooh, I kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
Her testimony was pretty limited due to the objections, so it's we don't have a lot we have to question her on immediately.
Yeah.
Hugo, checking in, are you ready for this?
Hugo is not making eye contact with anyone right now.
And in that moment, Whittaker gets a message from Amity. Hey,
if they put Anya up on the stand, you gotta stall.
I'm in the middle of a fucking court case, Amity Starnbrook. You cannot be calling me. I'm about to do cross-examination on the Princess of the Summer Court.
Don't cross-examine her yet. Literally talk to anybody else. We're working something out, but buy some time, okay? It's gonna take a little bit. Just buy some time.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Can you guarantee that you will have whatever it is you're going to have in the next, 30 minutes?
How do you think time works here, Mr. Whittaker?
I don't, Kabe. You know I don't.
Precisely. Do we need to delay?
We could use a delay, yes. I think we have to delay the cross-examination. We'll be calling her as a witness. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. We'll figure something out.
He will stand and he says, Your Majesties, the defense has no further questions for this witness at the current time. The Queen looks a little surprised by this and she says, Prosecution, your next witness? And Jay glances across the way to the defense and he says, The prosecution has no more witnesses at this time, Majesty. It is now on the defense to produce witnesses for this case. And the king speaks up and says,
Then we are adjourned at the halfway point of proceedings. Defense, gather your witnesses. We will hear from them after a brief recess.
And everyone in the court sort of stands up and starts to file out into the halls of the royal palace as court is temporarily adjourned while you finalize your witness list. We see Anya step down from the stand. She is again flanked by her retinue of guards. But as she passes by, she looks to you, Hugo. Do you say anything?
He doesn't say anything, but he meets her gaze, raises a hand, and rests it against the ring on his necklace, and tries to give her a look of, it's okay.
I think a hand goes to her mouth, possibly to try and hide a pained twitch of her lips, but her other hand goes to right over her sternum where a pendant used to sit. And she kind of turns away and allows the guards to flank her as they process out of the courtroom.
Your story is not written yet, Hugo Rashaad.
I think it is. It just doesn't go the way that we think it does.
Let's get to work.
Kabe flips the briefcase and sits down with you and Whittaker to start compiling a list of witnesses that you'll want to call into this case. We leave this area of the courtroom and follow out into the hallway, past Anya, past the other attendants, and into a chamber where Queen Maeve is sitting and being attended to. There are certain servants who are adding more length to her dress. Others are massaging her hands. Another is just offering a beverage, which she will sip from every now and then with a free hand. A fawn of some sort in royal livery comes into the room in a hurry. Clop, 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 clop on the stone tile here. And they say, Majesty, we've spotted the humans who came here with Hugo Rashaad. They're still in the Havens.
Uh-oh.
Yes, I assumed they would be. Where are they now? It seems they're fraternizing with the witch coven, led by one Merlin.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Indeed. They must be up to something. The little satyr servant says, I wouldn't presume, Majesty, but our scouts did see them. You see a little bird sitting on his shoulder, it's probably what he means by scouts. Well, if Mr. Rashaad's friends are going to be gallivanting around the Havens, they should not do so unattended. We must send them an escort. Set loose the royal beasts.
Ah, fuck.
What?
At once, Your Majesty. And they leave, clop, 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 their little hooves down steps and stairways and hallways to a gate outside the tower of the majestic royal palace, where they whisper something to some large armored figure who nods and makes a call into a hallway.
The royal beasts! Summon the royal beasts!
and chains are pulled, and locks are undone on a barred gate that is swung open on iron hinges, and footsteps and snarls, along with clacking and a sort of rustling of feathers as two large dark shapes approach the light of the havens and emerge from this cavern. And that's where we'll end our session.
Oh, shit.
Good luck, babes.
Oh, boy.
This is gonna be fine. This is gonna be so fine.
You thought you were just gonna walk around collecting stuff? I don't think
So you're
so.
just gonna go berry picking in the woods?
Kinda.
Yeah, I thought I was going on just a little fetch quest.
Yeah.
No.
I figured the Jabberwocky was enough of a challenge, but no!
No. What sort of fun would that be?
With the frizz? No way.
Rude as hell.
See you next time, adventurers.